I am Isaac Stefanski, and I've been behind a camera almost my whole life. My first digital camera was given to me by my parents when I was 6 years old. Little silver Sony CyberShot DSC P30 had a resolution of only 1.3 megapixels, the largest Sony memory stick that I had access to and actually had to share with my parents was a bit more than 100 megabytes. I think it might have been 128. And that may not sound like much to be excited about these days, where my workhorse is the Sony a7 IV, 33 megapixel mirrorless interchangeable lens camera that can fill up a pair of 256 gig SD cards no problem after firing off thousands and thousands of pictures and recording hours of 4K video. But clearly, my main hobby, my passion, had to start somewhere. And my hobby has grown, of course, from those humble beginnings. As you can guess, I didn't go straight from just random casual shots with an ancient point and shoot to serious shots on professional bodies and lenses. I grew my skills over the years, leveling up and gradually upgrading equipment. And even though I had only ever been doing this as a hobby and honestly never saw myself making a profession out of this, there came a point in time where I really began to get more serious about photography. I wanted to get more creative and move beyond just taking snapshots. I wanted to experiment with aperture, focus, angles, light, shadows, perspective. I wanted to capture moments and capture art. I wanted to see what different lenses would do. I just wanted to experiment and have fun with it. And eventually I became a photographer at church. Now if you want to capture moments, you get on the photography team at church and point that lens all around the altar and run all over the sanctuary during worship. I belong to a United Pentecostal church. There is never a dull moment. My other lifelong passion is cars. I've always found them to be cool, exciting, fun, a thrilling experience, just all around awesomeness. Cars and photography are something that I grew up with. I remember asking my parents once about how long we've been going to the auto shows, and they told me that they actually remember pushing me around in a stroller. I've always loved our family tradition of going to the auto shows every year in Chicago and Milwaukee. Every road trip we took was always a big deal, whether we were going 5-6 hours up north or just a couple hours down to Illinois. When I was a kid, every summer break I made sure to include time every single day for at least some need for speed on my computer. And I went from your typical handheld controller to a wheel and pedals, and really it was no surprise that I couldn't wait to get my license. And ever since then, I've been jumping at every chance I get to drive anything, anywhere. Well, okay, almost anything, almost anywhere. And let's just say that things are a little different these days in the car world, where cars have gone from things that are, exciting and an experience and something to really be genuinely passionate about to appliances. My first job, I spent hours and hours every day delivering groceries or catering orders or even floral arrangements. Or I could have been doing warehouse runs or making store-to-store transfers for Balustrade Sendix in the store's van. And man, when that Chevy Express that the store had ever since it opened in 2007 was finally replaced with a refrigerated Ford Transit, oh man, was that ever an exciting day. My second job, I shuttled people in a Chrysler Pacifica and parts in a ProMaster for Ewald Chrysler. And if there was ever a pause in any of that action, there was almost always a service vehicle that I was being asked to take on a test drive. And it's worth noting that it was when working at Ewald that someone finally taught me how to drive stick shift. It's a skill that people of a younger generation would probably either laugh at or just be totally confused by nowadays, which is kind of sad, really, because that in itself is an art form. working a third pedal and rowing your own gears. Oh, and in a car that burns gas. How foreign, they might think, in a world where now you choose how much electricity you want powering your vehicle, hybrid or fully electric, rather than choosing your transmission, manual versus automatic, and how many gears you want, 5, 6, 7 gears. Do you want a dog leg or gated? The modern automotive landscape is one filled with, oversaturated with vehicles that unfortunately just aren't as inspiring anymore. Vehicles have been dumbed down, so to speak, to nothing more than a way to get from point A to point B. Now, there are some gems out there still, don't get me wrong. Not every car available is horrible. There's still Ferraris, Lamborghinis, Maseratis, Bugattis, Porsches, they're out there. And it's those cars that still get you excited to see and to drive that we as car enthusiasts need to make sure stick around. It's those cars' experiences, thrills, memories, adventures, and their all-around fun factor and cool factor that we need to preserve. And that is where the arts of photo and video can help. Cars are a form of art, even though there's probably some snob at an art museum that would say otherwise. Well, that art snob person is wrong. Dead wrong. Even Mazda began using the design language called car as art. So I'm doing my part to preserve the cool, fun, thrilling experience that is cars. Place something in front of a camera and you can capture pictures and videos that make you feel something. And in this context, probably something along the lines of an urge to grab your keys and get in the car, have some fun. Legally, of course. I'm sure you probably already knew that, but we don't need anybody taking anything out of context. So why make a profession out of my passion? Why not? Now, I'm not out here to steal business from any other photographers. I'm not out here to undercut anybody. Is there money involved? Well, yeah, of course. I mean, this is business after all. So the business world will say that all of us working in the field of car photography are technically competitors. Well, at the end of the day, we're all members of the car enthusiast community doing our part to keep cars alive. Everybody's got a camera on their smartphone now. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing, because there are some good smartphone cameras. But there's an art in picking a body, picking a lens, framing up the shot, adjusting the aperture, and getting everything to look just right, and actually having fun and getting creative behind a real camera. And people say, well, what makes photography? Is it, and especially with cars, is it angles, is it geometry? Well, without sounding too cliche, it's art and science. Now, I'm not out here with a protractor and a compass and a ruler measuring every single angle and inch. I use these as my tools. While angles and perspective definitely matter, shots gotta look right. Alright, now the fun part. You bring your cars, I'll bring my cameras. Mazda or Maserati, Ford or Ferrari, Lexus or Lamborghini, whatever you drive. Whatever you bring to Cars and Coffee, whatever you take to the summertime collector shows, let's go do some shooting.